I will.
Good evening and welcome to Suffering in Silence with Pastor Tia. We are here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Love Bay family, we are continuing to rise out of the ashes together. Our topic on tonight is how to get through struggle. Our guests are Apostle Denise Ellis of Rock Generations and Chris Lamont of Lamont Brothers Entertainment. If you have any questions or comments for our guests or myself, you can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com, or you can text us at 437-778-3299. And also, if you have any resources that you would like to share with us on a national or local level from your country, your community, any local organizations, or your faith community, you can also email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. And with that, Chris, I'm going to ask you to go first and greeting our listeners and viewers on tonight.
Hello, thank you, Ms. Passatia. Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Lamont. I am a real estate developer in Dallas, but I also host an HGTV show called Buy It or Build It. And me and my brother are the hosts there. He apologized he couldn't get there. He had some family things he had to take care of. But we do real estate. We are philanthropists. We try to give back to the communities as well. And we do host TV shows. So nice to be here. Nice to see everybody. And we are excited to get going on this podcast today.
Awesome. And Apostle Ellis, if you would greet our listeners and viewers on tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Apostle Thelma Wilburn Ellis, Denise Ellis, and I'm from Rock Generations Ministries. I'm just greeting you on tonight. This is not my first rodeo with Pastor Tia, and I'm excited on tonight to have my son-in-law, Chris Lamont. Amen. So if you have any questions, as Tia says, we're here to answer, and I pray that you be encouraged on today.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So normally we share some resources before we go into the topic. But before I share those resources, I wanted to know why you're voting for the person, know what their agenda is, and believe in it. If you believe in it, you vote for it, great, go ahead and do it. But I wanted to bring attention to the federal funding freeze on this week. I really just wanted to throw that out there and make a point. The federal funding freeze by the government this week, it locked funding that is received by many nonprofit organizations. And a lot of those organizations exist to provide help, safety, and support for those dealing with trauma in different areas of their lives, including counseling, housing, financial support, food, basic necessities. And so part of the freeze was blocked by a federal judge. It was blocked by U.S. District Judge Lauren L. Alicon. And after that block, the White House rescinded a memo that froze federal grants and loans. But I want us to know and to understand what that federal funding freeze, what it meant, and what it will mean if it happens again. There are agencies that depend on federal funding to help the public. Everybody does not receive private funds to do what they do. So again, whoever you voted for is whoever you voted for. Whatever you think and feel and believe in politics, fine. But I believe that this is an issue that we need to understand. And I would just be remiss if I didn't bring that up because of who we are and because of what we do. Basically because of who I am, because of what I do. So that federal funding, that affects the organizations that can help individuals in those areas that we're trying to call out to get people support in. So if that wasn't on your mind, I just wanted to throw that out there. And don't take my word for it. Go read about it, research, pull up the information so you can see it on yourselves. But I believe that was very important. And it was something that shouldn't just go by. Now, having said that, my own nonprofit, Rise Out of the Ashes, Inc., if you would like to be a help to us, you can visit GoFundMe and look for our nonprofit, Rise Out of the Ashes, Inc. And what we do, one of the hugest parts of what we do is the immediate emergency fundings of helping individuals dealing with issues related to domestic violence. We've helped individuals move locations, move from one state to another to be in a safe space. We've helped pay utilities. We've helped with food, with clothes, with school supplies. We've really been as much as a financial support that we can be, but we need help to do that. So if you would like to, you can visit GoFundMe, or you can write a check out to Rise Out of the Ashes, Inc. Our address is P.O. Box 15, and we are in Drexel Hill, PA. Our zip is 19026. With that, I also want to share in Dallas, Texas, Genesis Women's Shelter and Support. Their website is genesisshelter.org. Their 24-hour helpline is 214-946-4357. And their mission is to provide shelter, safety, and support for women and children who have experienced domestic violence, and to raise awareness regarding its cause, the prevalence, and impact. In New Jersey, there is the New Jersey Coalition to End Domestic Violence. Their website is njcedv.org/services. Their number is 1-800-572-7233. And you can view their guide to services to find domestic violence programs throughout New Jersey. So that's a website that you can go through to find different agencies to help throughout New Jersey. And then we have the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is for the entire United States. Their website is thehotline.org, and their phone number is 1-800-799-7233. And within Canada, we have the Canadian Women's Foundation. Their website is canadianwomen.org. Their number is 1-866-293-4483. So those are the resources we wanted to share on tonight. So I just have one more note I want to give, and then I'm just going to go give this right to Chris, and we're going to move forward in our conversation. And I talked with Chris briefly, I believe it was on yesterday, and I told him I wanted to say this. I really wanted to make the point because of the topic on tonight, which is how to get through struggle. We are in no way, no one is being advised in any kind of manner at all to stay in an abusive situation or to stay in something that is hurting you and you just deal with it or try to figure it out. I wanted to make that clear because of the title of our program on tonight, How to Get Through Struggle. We are not trying to emphasize to anyone how to get through or deal with somebody hurting you. That is not what the intent of this program is tonight. So I wanted to start with that. I wanted to make that clear. And having made that statement, Chris, I just want to start with, just saying, the average person does not start out at the top. Just that the average person does not have everything at their fingertips. And moving through life, people really go through things. You can go through trauma. You can go through accidents. There could be death in your family that's experienced. The loss of a job, just life circumstances, normal things that can happen, hurtful things that can happen just because it's life. And so with that, I want to ask you if you would, tell us about your company and tell us, how you got there, the struggle that you got through to get to that point. Because I know you didn't just open your eyes and it was just here. Like it didn't happen, that way.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
If I want to give it to you, to just go from there.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Tia, Mama Ellis, and if I call Apostle Ellis Mama Ellis, that's my mama, so that's what I'm gonna call her. Right. So, thank you, Ms. Tia, for leading me into this, and like she said, getting through struggle isn't just trying to fight through something and staying in the situation. It's also going through it and understanding that you have to get by it to get out of it, right? Sometimes. And one thing I say before I start is, if you're in real estate, let's say if you're renting somewhere and you think that by leaving that home, you're going to lose your credit, or you're not going to be able to get another rental, that is incorrect. It is federal law that if there is an abusive relationship and you need to get out of there, go through the proper channels. You will not have any early lease problems or anything like that. They can't put it on your credit or anything like that. You are allowed by law, if you're in a bad situation, to get out of there. Just go to the proper situations, get your paperwork, and you will be fine. So don't put that as an excuse that you're going to lose your credit scores or anything and you can't go anywhere else. You will be able to do that. I just wanted to say that too, to make it a little bit more logistical, right? About how, if you want to get somewhere, you gotta go. Now, the topic today is, how do we get through struggle? And struggle we get through struggle all the time, right? No matter if I'm here now, we struggle. I've had recent struggles that are really serious, but we're going to take it back to where, it begins, right? When it comes to, where you start off in your life, starting a business, but also, leaving your house, and sometimes when you wake up, listen, we're just in a situation that's not as good as others, right? Our mom and dad, if we even have a mom and dad, our grandma and grandpa, our guardian, whoever the case may be, may not have everything they need for us to be successful, for us to even eat, for us to even have electricity at night, right? Those are struggles from the beginning of our lives that puts us behind the 8 ball. Let's be real, right? So when you're behind that 8 ball, you're telling yourself, well, how am I going to get to the people I see on Instagram or TikTok and those things, because I don't have anything right now, or my mom doesn't allow me, I don't have lunch at school, or I don't have a way to get to work, or whatever the case may be. These are struggles that are in everyday life that we have to basically smile our way through and just sit and have a good outlook on life, right? When we're at home, we're not doing that. So I'll tell you a little bit of my story. My mom and dad my dad is from Jamaica and my mom is from Buffalo, New York, and they are great parents, right? They have worked very hard. My dad is a foreign, he's from Jamaica, so he is foreign, came here in the old days, and he's worked his way up. Now he has many struggles, and that's another reason why I'm who I am today, because I saw his struggles and how he fought through racism and classism and all those things growing up. And we had to move a lot because he couldn't get a fair shake in those areas where he was at, right? So I lived in Buffalo, New York, and then we moved to New Jersey, and then Maryland, and then back to New Jersey, and then here and there. So we moved a lot because my dad would never tell himself that you're going to tell me no and I can't be somebody who I want to be, right? So we learned that through our everyday life and realize that, listen, everything's not going to be great through here, right? So when you're getting through, once again, when you're going through struggle, it's a very strong, very thin line between, do we get out or do we push through, right? And I'm going to try to decipher that today in the message that we're talking about. So I'll start off when we were in college. So after college, my brother and I, we went to Lehigh University, a pretty good college. We played football, so we were able to use our athletic talents to go to a pretty good college. But when we got out of college, all those dreams and aspirations of being an NFL player, we weren't that. I'm too small, right? Couldn't do that. But we wanted to help people and do real estate. And we had a friend, I won't say a name, but we had a friend that went to our school and made a thought like, hey, I went to school in Pennsylvania, but he was like, well, I'm from Dallas. Let's go down to Dallas. Let's start doing houses. And I have a job for you at the insurance company, AIG, which at the same time in 2007, 2008, that company went bankrupt. Real estate was gone. It was probably the worst time in America to be a college graduate and coming out. So we were all struggling. But my brother and I put more on it because we didn't really have a plan. We just thought we was gonna come down here and everything was gonna be okay because everything is always okay when you're younger, right? But we didn't know that you had parents helping you out. But at this point, when we came down here, we lived in probably one of the worst parts of Dallas, because when we first came down here, what we thought was going to be a job wasn't a job because there was no company. So we were living on our friend's couch for weeks, just trying to figure it out. People telling, we were trying to find ways to get jobs. It was very difficult at this time. I'm talking about, we had no money. We had around, if you watch the TV show, they say we had $4,000. Didn't even have that. We may have had $1,000 total from whatever you get from graduation. But after you spend money getting down here, doing this, doing that, we had about $1,000 to our name. And we were really in some deep trouble at this point. So what do? You know, being young, we had to fight through it. We literally found ways giving plasma every week, every 8 hours, being in there with the most, you know, the people that are in the same predicament but lower, right? Thieves and everything, giving the plasma. I'm right in there with them. My brother Calvin, his arm is getting super big because the plasma is not taken. Like, we get $80 for 8 hours as we're there. We're going out, literally selling merch on the streets, just trying to make $10, $15 a day to add up enough to be able to live in what we used to call First 48, which was literally, we lived in an area where First 48 was prevalent. Like, every single week on TV, it was our neighborhood on First 48 in Dallas. That's where we lived at, coming from a prestigious college, going down here and getting a wake-up call like, you're in real life now and you got to get it done. So that was tough right there. And we just continued to pray. We had a book, like some of our friends would come down and we had a diary, and I looked at it recently, and this diary was almost like, when you read it back now, it's like, wow, only thing we had was the Lord. I'll tell you that right now, right? Like, when you read the book, it was like day 28, no job, no food, but the Lord is going to push you away. That's all we had, Mama. It's like, it was literally, we were just falling back on, we know we have a purpose down here, and we have to fight through these struggles to get to that purpose, even though this purpose might be, at this point, it was down the road, right? So we know, and you know, from what I've learned is, guys, if you're going to be successful, you have to have your foundation, and it's so true, right? So if you don't have a place to stay, if you don't have food, if you don't have shelter, if you don't have transportation, if you don't have these basic needs, it's like a triangle, right? And the basic needs is the food, the water, the shelter, you know, health. If you don't have those needs, there's nothing that we can do to go try to be the superstar we can be and want to be, right? And my brother and I had to realize that really fast, right? And it's not even a realization, right, of it. It's just the fact that it smacks you in your face when you're like, well, I cannot focus on starting a business. I can't focus on being my best person. I can't focus on doing anything until we get our foundation down. So that's what we tried to do, right? We took it all the way back. Even though this is us coming from playing football every day, traveling, eating for free at school. My parents were out the country at this point, so we had nobody to help us. My mom and dad left the country to go do something else for like a couple of years. So it was me and my brother by ourselves when we got out of college, and we had no support. My little brother was across the country doing what he had to do. So we had to look into the mirror and say, are we going to sit down and, you know, go figure it out, go back up north and figure it out, or are we going to fight through this, right? This is one of those crossroads when we're talking about struggle. And this same struggle is, right, anything in life, right? Am I going to just sit here and act like it's going to be okay and continue to do what I do and then keep going lower? Or am I going to take a stand and say, okay, let me focus in on what is most important? And sometimes we lose what's most important because we're looking at what other people are doing. back then we had an advantage because we didn't really have Instagram. And I'm not that old. We're talking about 14, 15 years. It may have been around, but it wasn't like everybody had it. I didn't have it or anything like that. So we didn't have those type of, vices to look at and see everybody's, having fun and doing all that. We kept our head down and we continued to work through the struggles, right? So I implore everyone who has, the struggles in our lives, whatever it be, we can't find a meal. If it's just that the car breaks down at the inopportune time, right? The kids are always getting in trouble. These are all struggles that we have to deal with, right? You're having a baby and then there's something wrong with the child. You got to deal with that. These are major struggles, right? Or we just don't have a place to stay, which is the most major one, right? We need to slow down, focus in, and not try to ignore it, but we need to take it head on, right? So how do we do that, right? How do we take on, because we always can talk about a struggle, but how do we, because everybody talks about, oh, we struggle, but how do you get through it, right? We have to humble ourselves. So I was humbled at the ultimate route, right? Going to the plasma place, giving blood, going on the streets, no drugs. You go into a company where I get paid $40. Matter of fact, we did two things that were, it's coming back to you. You start like, these are things that you almost put out your head and then it pops back in your head like, oh, snap. But there's two things that we had to do that really humbled us, which was obviously giving plasma, not even blood. They took the good stuff out of our blood and gave us the blood back, right? Like that's what they did with us, right? But also, Calvin and I had to do something called able-body labor. We woke up at 7 o'clock, we woke up at 5 o'clock or 4:30 in the morning, went to this place in Arlington, and we would just sit there in the morning and get an odd job. And I swear to God that we got paid $35 a day. Because back then we were at $7 an hour. $7, you work 7 hours, that's 49. They took away $7 for them and then $5 for the person that gives you gas. Can you imagine coming home after a full day of, I'm talking about construction labor, $35. Me and Cal put it together like, all right, we got 70. Humble yourselves, because we had a goal in mind, right? And that goal was, we're not going to be here forever. We're doing it, right? We're making the $5. Like we had to put, one of our first jobs at able-body labor was literally, it was a hotel. It was us and a couple others, about 4 or 5 other guys. And there's no elevator. We put 200 queen-size beds in that place in one day. I couldn't. This is right after college, so I was an athlete, but I still couldn't walk the next day. Like, can you imagine picking that many beds up the stairs? These guys, they were running up the stairs, and we're like, whoa, like it was crazy. But so those are the things that we had to do just to be able to make $35 to be able to put $5 in gas. Go to Jack, and we didn't even have a Jack in the Box up north, right? I didn't know what that was, but my mom knew it because she called it Jack in the Crack because it would go right through your body and right out. That's what it was. And so for a whole day, we would go to Jack in the Box. It was back in the day. It was 2 tacos, like the tacos. If you know Jack in the Box, for like $1. I would get that, and I would eat one of the tacos, and then eat one later. That's what we were doing. Like we were bare bones survival mode. So if you're talking about struggle, we know it. T, you got something to say?
So, I mean, you have just said so many things. I want to make just a couple of points for you to expand on. The first thing that I want to say is, you said that you and Calvin had to make the decision. You had to make the decision to fight. You were either going to stay in Texas or go back, but you guys made the decision to stay and to do what you needed to do there. What I wanted to say is that was a good decision. That was a good fight to stay in. And I want to emphasize again, love bay to anyone. If you are in a situation that is causing you any kind of harm, there is no good decision to stay and try to fight through that. Now, I totally understand being in a situation where you have to take your time to get out of it. You have to plan to get out of it. But the point is to get out of it. You may not be able to pick up and just go. So perfect example, my situation, I had to plot, I had to plan, I had to save money. And when I got what I needed, then I was able to go. So the good decision to stay in a fight, you're not being harmed, you're not being hurt, but it's still a struggle. And I think that it's beautiful that you and Calvin had each other. You know, you had the support of the two of you together. And I wanted to say, and I'll ask you to expand on this point. If you don't have the physical support with you, if you don't have an example to look at, find one or become that example for yourself. Just don't stop. Just keep moving. So I wanted to throw that out there and get your feedback on that one.
Yeah. So we're talking about like, why in God's name would Chris and Calvin do all these things just to have a possibility of being, we don't know, right? So why did we do that, right? The question, so I would say this, and this goes back to what you just said, right? And you're gonna see it in a second. The only way to get through struggle is to put a goal out there to go get.
Yes.
Ms. Tia, your goal was, I'm getting out of this situation no matter what. Yes. So therefore you were able to get out of this. You knew it was like, you're getting abused, you're doing those things. It is horrible, but you had to lock in and say, okay, you had a goal in mind. And once you tell me, right, Ms. Tia, once you got that goal of I'm getting out, what was happening to you became second, and it was the focus of the goal. Get the money, line everything up. I need to be here. I'm going to do this so I can get out. Am I right on that, Ms. Tia?
That is how it is.
Right? Go ahead.
It was a life or death. So for me, that is exactly what it came down to, a life or death decision. And I said to myself, I'm not going to die in this house. Now, I knew for sure one of us was, and it just wasn't going to be me. I came to that decision. I came to that very real decision. I was not going to die in that house. I also decided I'm not going to stay in this house and go to jail for killing him because my life was worth more than that. And so, again, I just put my plan together. It wasn't when I finally had opened up and let individuals know around me what was happening. Everybody had an idea. Everybody had an opinion. Nobody was helping. So I still had to do everything on my own. I had to do it within me. And I did it. I can't even say this was, I made the decision for my children. No, I didn't want to die. I did not want to die. And so I put that plan together. I put my goal together. My goal was save the money, get the money that I needed. I had to move before I had as much money as what I wanted. But with that, it was like, I got to find a place. And I was getting up. I was looking at houses and apartments before I went to work, after work, while I was at work, I was taking breaks. It was like, I look back now and it's like, I just remember stuff like, wow, how did I do that? How did I get through it? Like some stuff, like you said, like you block the memories and some things just come back. It's like, wow, I forgot I did that. I forgot I went through that. And some of it is hard and it's hurtful. Struggle is not pretty. And especially when it's of that magnitude, when you're talking about life and death, when you're talking about being hurt, when you're talking about someone stepping on your emotions and your feelings, when you talk about somebody playing with you psychologically, none of that is pretty. But again, as you said, when you make that decision within yourself and when you line up your goals, and you don't have to share those goals with anybody.
No need, because it's not going to matter, right? There's no need.
You need to know. You need to, my goal, this is my vision. I might not be able to tackle the whole picture right now, but I can do this right here. Let me work on number 1, and then I can get the number 2. So goals are extremely important. And again, you don't have to voice it to anyone else. And in some cases you shouldn't, because it's dangerous. And in the other cases, it's just people will just tear you down just because. Just because it's like, well, you know, I would do it this way, I would do it that way. Well, this is not you right now. So you can take your degree, go do whatever you want, or you can go to whatever part of the country you want to be in. You can leave the country, you can do that. But this is what I'm going to do right now. So I think part of the struggle, and tell me what you think, I think part of the struggle is really having it within yourself to move forward and not let the outside come in and distract you. So it's like you had your support, like you and Colin were together, like this is what we're going to do. But it's like not getting distracted with what you see, social media, with other people and their what could be their success, not getting distracted with other people's thoughts and concerns, and not getting distracted with I'm not where I want to be right now, and it doesn't feel good, but being able to still move forward. A little bit of progress is progress.
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what it is. And there's different levels of struggle, right? So the struggle that you were doing, Ms. Tia, that is a tough struggle to where mentally, really no matter what, it's the focus going to be there because it's life and death, right? Yeah. So it locks you in. Like, listen, it's either I'm going to do this or the ultimatum is I'm not on this show helping other people get through the struggles that we're talking about now. That's just bottom line, right? So that's kind of like the same thing like Calvin and I, like we're not like, you're going to be on the street. Like we literally were 2 days. If we didn't have the ability to talk the way we talk, we got home one day and the door was locked in the apartment. This is the worst part. We paid $300 a month. We still couldn't pay it. And the only reason why we're able to get in because my friend was on the couch sleeping, and he couldn't. And he was on the couch sleeping, and he really couldn't even wake up. So he opened the door and was like, oh, snap, they didn't know I was in here. So we were able to get back into the apartment. So like, once again, we got blessed by being lucky, right? So there's certain levels of struggle. Our second level of struggle is when it gets a little easier, right? So let's say that now you're out, Ms. Tia. We've gotten out the house now, right? We've gotten, I've gotten the house. You've gotten out your first main situation. But that doesn't, we just got our basic needs down, right? Basically, does that make sense? Like we are still at the low, but you know, there's a struggle where you don't even have any needs or have anything that you have. And then there's something where we're trying to be, helpful to society, right? We want to be able, like everybody wants to have it. At this point, I wasn't even thinking about being a millionaire. I'm thinking about, or getting a business. I'm thinking about having a job. How about we have something to eat every day? How about we, feel comfortable? Because if you don't feel comfortable and have, like you said, being able to go home and not have that man or your woman on your back abusing you, that's the first part of comfortability, right? So once we get that, now it's like, okay, I can see a little bit what's the next move, right? And that's where Calvin and I was, right? After for grace of God, we were able to find jobs. So after that first year, right, we were just fighting and fighting and fighting. And then it was like, okay, I found a job. Calvin got a job doing something like doing starting car sales. I finally found a job at the hotel, but then I got a job at like T-Mobile, where I can use my abilities to talk and sell. And then so I'm finally making some money, right? $3,000 a month because I'm just selling. I only got paid $10 an hour, but I can make money on commissions. I'm selling phones. Like, this is great, right? Like I was finally making real money kind of. But Calvin and I still had a goal. So now, guys, once we get through that basic struggle, because we talked about you're not going to do anything successful if our basic needs of health, security, food, and shelter, if they're not taken care of, you're not going anywhere. So focus on that if that needs to be the focus. Don't feel ashamed. It has to be done. And there's nothing that we can do. I'm telling you right now, we can't skip it. You got to fix that first. So once you get out of there, but me and Tia are telling you that we were there. and it's possible to get out of. Now, it's going to seem impossible, but when you get out of it, you're going to be thinking like what me and Tia said was, how did we get out of it? It's because of the heart in you, the faith that you have in the Lord, the faith that you have in yourself. That will get you through, because every day is going to be some small luck that gets you through, right? You meet somebody that gets you that job. You meet somebody that it's going to be there. I'm telling you, you got to keep on fighting every day. That's when the Lord blesses you. We don't get blessed by sitting on the couch. Right, Mama Ellis has been the same thing, right? You don't get blessed by sitting on the couch. You're not gonna get favored by not going to church, giving $1. And Miss Ellis like, listen, go give $1, give a quarter, sit outside the church. If you don't feel like you want to go in because you don't have the clothes, sit outside the church and listen. Listen. The Lord, you don't have to worry about how nobody else see you if you don't want to go in that church because you're not prepared. But if you hear it, He hears you, right? Let's just be real, right? There's certain ways we get there. So. Once we get past that, I'm not going to get into the psychology part of it, but just that basic needs, we move on to the second part, right? Ms. Tia, you got something to say before we go on?
So I wanted to say the psychology part that you were talking of. So I wanted to mention the point that Apostle Ellis just gave us, which one is to control your thoughts, to move forward and not be in bondage, is in fear, in bondage of fear. That's part of that psychology part. Because it's a mental aspect too. It's not just physically what you get up and do. It's not physically just getting up and going to look for a job. It's not physically getting up and going to church, where if it's a good church, you will get strength. It is the mental part. It's being able to get away from the fear of being able to make a decision for yourself. So the psychological part is absolutely important. And Apostle also gave a point of self-care. And Apostle, please, if you want to jump in there, please do.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought about when I was going through domestic violence as well. And those are the things that I had to get my mind, my thought together to be bold enough to come out of the bondage and not be afraid to walk outside of the house. Mm-hmm. So my thought pattern had to change. I had to get over that fear. The Bible says, fret not yourself because of evildoers, So I had to find out what my triggers were.
Yes.
And change my thought process, because I knew I had to get to a safe place. And I knew that I couldn't always go to the shelter, but I had to learn how to be independent. Mm-hmm. So my thoughts had to change. And so I had to overcome, and get rid of the fear and not keep going back. Because a lot of times when, like you both said, we can get stuck there. Mm-hmm. But the point is to change your mindset, realize that you have to take care of yourself. You have to eat healthy. You have to get the right sleep. Because when you go through these things, you go through depression.
Yes.
You go through anxiety, So all those things that come to your mind is that when you're being abused, or when you're going through a struggle, that you feel like you're denied, you're angry, you're depressed, and are you going to be accepted? Mm-hmm. When you do go for that job?
And that's why that goal, Miss Ellis, is so important, right?
Yeah.
If you have that goal of where you want to go, no matter how small that goal is or how large that goal is, your attitude about what you're doing to reach that goal will be totally different in your mind. Does that make sense? Right? Mm-hmm. Being able to understand where you're going to go is going to 100% allow you to get through what you're going to do to get there, no matter how hard it will be. Because if you have that goal of, I'm getting out of here, I'm going to get this job, or whatever the case may be, right? I want to, have whatever the case may be, good, at the lowest level or the highest level, setting that goal will allow you to get through any type of most struggles that will come up because you're not focused on how do I look having to go give blood? How do I look having to go to the shelter every other week? How do I, like, you're not worried about how you look because you know the goal.
Right.
Right? So you're going to fight through what you're doing at that point because you understand that if I do this, I got a clear path to where I want to be at.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, Chris, just with that point right there, I want to say struggle does not mean failure.
Right.
Struggle does not equate to failure. I believe the only way that you can fail is if you don't try. If you don't do anything, that guarantees failure. Yeah. But because you're having issues with money, because you're having issues with alcohol and drugs, because you're having issues with your family, with domestic violence, with the children, with your education, with the job, because you're having issues, because there's a struggle that you are now facing and you're working your way through it, that doesn't mean that you are a failure. That does not mean that you have failed. I think that's something that sits on people's shoulders because, again, we can look at others and we can believe that what I'm looking at is a perfect life. Mm-hmm. He has a wonderful business. He's on television. He has this car. She has this house. They just look great. And so we can look at others and we can look at things and automatically feel defeated because we're not there. But you don't know what that person went through to get what they have. You don't know what that person is going through to keep what they have. Struggle doesn't disappear when you have money. Struggle doesn't disappear when you have the house or the car that you want. Your struggle may change. You may have a different one, or it just may be a bigger struggle to keep what you got. But struggle in and of itself does not mean failure. And I really want to drive that point home. And that's what I was
getting to, Ms. Tia. Go ahead.
So I would even say, and then I'll give this back to you, Chris, that when you get through one struggle, and then if you find yourself struggling in a different area, that doesn't mean failure either. That means that you just have another issue over here that you have to work through. And if you got through the first one, you can get through this one.
Yes. So, Chris, and the word struggle, guys, the word struggle is used a lot, right? All the way up the chain, all the way down, right? What we were talking about at first is what we call real struggle, right? Like that's the basis of struggle. If you don't got your needs, but we're gonna go past that right now, right? So we've already, thank the Lord, we didn't pass the struggle, like we passed the real struggle, like having to get those basic needs done. But that once we get through that, we're not done yet, guys. Now we're talking about how to become successful through struggle. That's the next step, right? So a couple of things that Ms. Tia just talked about, Pastor Tia talked about is, and I call it slowing down to speed up, and then knowing when to pivot. Knowing when you gotta make a move and pivot. Because Calvin and I did not just say, oh, we're gonna come down here, we're gonna be on TV, we're gonna do real estate, and we're there. That's not what happened. So after we got our basic needs down, there was no real estate going on in 07. There was none of those things you can do back then because it was two young Black kids that never had a credit score, had a credit card, not getting houses, right? We're not doing that, guys. So we had to pivot to understand what we wanted to do. And we said, what can we do to see if we can get into this business stuff? So on the day, so I found out my first son, he's 14 years old now. I found out my first son was going to be born in like October 2009. January 1st, 2010, Calvin and I made a decision that we were going to quit our businesses that made us finally at least comfortable to, go out and have a meal, be able to pay the bill without having to worry about giving blood. Like we finally did that. And Calvin and I said that this was not our reason to come down here. And this, I don't say do this now. So once again, but we quit. We did this though. We quit our jobs. And Calvin, I just found out I was going to have a kid, and I still did this because I knew that it was going to be a struggle, but I knew that we had to do this to become where we wanted to go, right? So we decided to say we're going to start a carpet cleaning company. It was called CWC, Clean with Care. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Had a whole tagline and everything, right? We didn't tagline it. It was great. We thought we were going to be rich. You know what I'm saying? We're finally in business now. But guess what happened right in our business? But the first week of business, our so-called buddy went to the account, stole all the money on drugs, stole all of it. We only had $2,000 we done saved up for the last 2 years, but it was all gone. Can you imagine that, guys? Right when we thought we were about to get to that next level, get it going, boom. More bad happenings. What do? Listen, the steps, like when you're talking about being mad, guys, grieving, acceptance, moving on. I don't care if that happens with death. It happens with life too, with very serious situations, right? You're gonna get hit. I call it woo. You guys know what I'm talking about? When you get hit with like that, you start getting real like, whoa, it's just like, feels like it's like your ears start going crazy, right? That's something that's really bad that happens to you guys. And we have to go through that process. You know, obviously take your time, but when it's something like that, you got to get through that process and move forward. So after we did that, Cal and I said, all right, we still gonna do this. We were able to get a truck for like a couple thousand, and we just started cleaning carpets and stuff like that and started rocking and rolling. It was all we can do. But during that time, there's only 2 of us. It was very difficult. We had to call each other every day about, okay, how many carpet cleans do we need now just to be able to live? And my wife was like, listen, just make sure you about to check. Make sure. Now I'm actually kind of going crazy. I ain't got a family now. Was that the best thing in the world? Yes, it was now as I can see it. But at the time, I'm like, what am I doing? I can't even support myself. Now I got a job and I got a woman at home. Miss Ellis, close your ears. I'm Ellis, close your ears. You ain't supposed to hear. But my wife helped me a lot though, right? She was like, listen, I got this. Like she was a bank now. She was like, listen, I got $400. We'll pay the rent. You got $300. We'll get it done, right? So help and support when you can is going to be great. But sometimes you don't have that support. So you have to be able, so at these times, as we continue to grow the business, as you know, so we don't do carpet cleaning no more. Does that mean we failed, Miss Tia?
No,
does that mean we failed? Not at all. We had to make decisions. And what if we never made a decision to pivot? Would I be talking to you right now? I can bet you not. Would I be on TV? No.
And Mama Ellis would be real mad too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll be up there. I'll be living with Mama.
Right. You got that right.
I'll be up north. I'll be up north doing whatever I have to do to be, and it would be, listen, you're gonna do what you gotta do. But like you said, if you want to be successful, you gotta push through sometimes, right? So the first part we talked about is knowing when to leave and never letting abuse take you. Get out of there, have a plan and go, right? We know that now. We've already talked about that. That's 100% fact. We never say anything like that. And now we're talking about phase 2 and 3, which is knowing when to slow down and speed up, which means take a step back. What am I doing in my business? That's right and wrong. Why am I not becoming more successful? What am I doing in life? The job isn't going well. The job's not jobbing, right? So yeah, how do I pivot that, right? So all these things are slowing down, speeding up, but it's writing these things down. What can I do? Can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? And then you make these decisions. Because I always say in life, and this is important, guys, in life, especially in this world, America, there's really nothing that we can do today that's going to help tomorrow. Does that make sense? Let me say it one more time. There's nothing that we can do today that's going to really help immediately tomorrow, as in, oh, I need to go get $1,000 for rent. You're not getting it tonight. Which means we need to slow down. Get some start figuring out where our goals are and understanding that we need to have plans. So that means that we got to be honest with ourselves. When we're not honest with ourselves and where we are at in our lives, that puts us in predicaments where we have to do things that might not be godly and you might not want to do because you still have to live. Does that make sense, right? So if I sat there and said, okay, this is what we did in our business too in our lives. I need to pay rent. And this is now, because remember, I don't have that job no more, right? I don't have the job. I'm working for myself now. So now my thought is every day, and even to this day, just in a bigger scale, I need to be able to pay a mortgage. I need to be able to pay rent. I need to be able to eat. not just tomorrow, but down the week, next week, and the other week. So what do I do today to be able to build those blocks to when the rent is due on the 1st, right? It's the 3rd now. What do I do on the 3rd and build the blocks to the 29th to be able to pay? What do I do in business in terms of calling out people, right? This business guy, you want to go do business, you're not getting, so what do we do today? How many phone calls are we going to make? How many people are we going to talk to? What are we going to do to get other people, to get our business going, right? Like, these are things we have to be advanced with. Where we get in trouble is when we have that, when, especially in Texas, you see that driver, right? They driving and you beep and they don't even look like, they just think the Lord is going to take them to where they got to go, no matter what, right? Like, I'm going to run this red light and not look. It's going to be okay. Just because you don't look, don't mean you're going to get hit by that car. Like you can be ignorant if you want to and drive and run past that red light and think that because I'm looking straight and the guy's beeping at me, I'm just going to be okay. That's not how it works. You can now, 8 out of 10 times, you probably might be okay passing through that light. But a couple times you do that, you're going to get hit by a car, and that's going to be a serious situation, right? So the same thing in life, right? Like, don't be scared to look at yourself and understand, I need to make a change now or I'm going to be in trouble real soon, right? So that's what I'm talking about, being able to understand where you are in life, understand if you are on the cusp of struggle, don't be afraid of it. And that goes back to watching the social media. And this is something that, this is within ourselves, right? Like, we are telling ourselves sometimes lies when no one else is listening to your own thoughts. You know that you don't got the money to pay the next month. Like, it's in your brain, you know that. You have to be truthful to yourself. And if it's going to get help, go find it. If it's doing an extra job, if it's doing a little bit more studying, right? If it's for your young kids, right? If I got 4 zeros and the semester's over tomorrow, or if I'm in college, you failed, right? Like, some things I can point to, which makes it really, really simple what I'm talking about, right? But because life is way more difficult and not as acute and not as, accountable as having a grade, being in sports, right? Those are accountability, right? Like, I play a football game on Saturday. If I did not prepare all week, it's very simple. I'm going to lose, I'm going to get hurt, right? Like, those are simple things. But life, that's why life is so unique, because we can fool ourselves, and accountability usually doesn't come until it's too late.
Right. Exactly.
So you need to watch out.
Chris, we have a few more minutes, but what I want to do, I want to ask you to expound on this point, our final point of. I'll
keep it short this time too. 2 minutes. Go ahead.
No, we're good. We're good. I want your full answer, so don't cut it. We're good. Well, let me say already, I definitely would love to have you and Calvin back together so we can just continue an encouraging conversation.
No problem. We can make it a recurring every quarter or something like that. We'll come on and just continue to talk about things, maybe add more business, or, to be more acute on certain things. But today is just overall about giving you my life and what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So tell Calvin you said yes already.
He wanted to do it today, but I said, just do your thing. He was really trying to get on, though, guys. No disrespect. He was really trying to get on today, but he will be on next time.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Misty. I'm sorry.
Nope. So what I want to do is I want you to give your thoughts on this point here. Once you have gotten through the struggle, once you've gotten to that place where that issue that you were dealing with, that goal you wanted to accomplish, you accomplished. You got through that issue. You've mastered it. You've done what you needed to do. I would love for you to expound right now on how you get through your struggle to go back and help others through that same struggle.
Empathy. Being able, and I pride myself, and not everybody is as empathetic, right? We talk about people who are in leaders. A lot of times we get that feeling of, you need to go through it too because I went through it. right? I'm not going to help you because you need to do that, or government don't give the money back for colleges because I paid my college bill. Like, we need to stop this because I did it. You got to do it too, right? And we need to get back to what the Lord told us a long time ago. And the basic thing, if you can be a Catholic, a Christian, a Jew, the basic thing is being empathetic and loving one another, right? So if you have love for others and you're empathetic, that's where it starts at, by understanding how you can help other people, right? So I am very genuine with people I talk to, right? So when I talk to somebody, I have a lot of energy, as you probably guys can tell, right? I got plenty of energy. I can go all day, right? I play football. I play at a high level, Division I. I got a lot of energy and I use it and I don't get tired much. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's a benefit for me, right? So not everybody else has that energy. So having good energy is one step that is going to help people around you without even saying anything to them. Having that same energy, that same fervor that you had to become successful or to reach your goal. And success does not mean being a millionaire. Success is, like you said, getting through that struggle and saying, listen, I wanted these things and I got them. I'm not saying stop there. We will expound on that in the next episode that we talk. But we're talking about this. This is when you're going back, and it's just like holding the door for somebody who opened it, right? You coming in. Oh, are you gonna just let the door close down because you opened it, because you had to open it? Right? So you gotta think, right? So being able to be empathetic, being able to go back into yourself and be honest with yourself and say, man, I sure wish I knew that. I sure wish I had that help. I sure wish that I could have did this. How about you take those thoughts and provide that? Not everybody's going to listen, guys, but all we can do is help, right? So you said something about the Genesis in Dallas, right?
Yes.
Believe it or not, Calvin and I work with them a lot. Like, we provide with Genesis, and we work with them, and whatever we have, we provide. And I think that the joy that you can get, and this comes back to being this is like a selfish thing for you too, right? When you help somebody and they look you in their eye and you see that sincere thank you, or even if you don't get it, or you look down the street and say, wow, he's actually doing way better because I was able to drive something simple. I drove the man to a job. I gave the man on the street $10, and I'm not going to worry about where the $10 went. Maybe the first 10 times you gave him $1, it went to a drink. But what about that last time you gave him a $10 bill? It went to getting the application and maybe getting a shirt from the Salvation Army to get a job. So we need to not worry about what other people are going to do or what they're trying to do, and we just need to be empathetic and loving to be able to give, because they might have an opportunity to be where you are, and it's not going to hurt you at all just to show love, have high energy. Because let's be real, guys, when we had that struggle, Miss Tia and Mama Ellis, our energy was low. My mom thought I was on crack because I lost so much weight. I was very small because it's the same thing. Like, our health wasn't right. We're not eating because we're so sad and we didn't have no money. And we had to think back those times, like, it was tough. And if we can help somebody, let's do it. So that's why I am so grateful. And I love talking. I love talking and giving my testimony and giving information to other people. I like helping people. Another example, on HGTV, they were like, hey guys, we need a stager and we're going to use Mrs. Christy Baker. You get what I'm saying, right? We're going to use Mrs. Baker, right? Mrs. You know what I'm saying? But I was like, no. We're not going to do that. I got somebody for us. We're going to use Nikki Watson, my girl. And now Nikki is doing so many she was already doing big things, but now she's really flying up there, getting it going. I can't be more happy and more joyful for being able to say, hey, we're going to use Nikki, because first of all, she deserved it and she grinded out. But another thing is, just because I have the opportunity to be to have that kind of power and to say that, and they actually, remember, they didn't have to do that. They actually went out there, talked to her, and now she's a part of HGTV, right, and doing a whole bunch of great things. So that is something that you should be able to be very happy on, and that is what's going to get you way more success in the future, because you never know who you touch that might come back and touch you later. And
Yes.
Here we go.
Absolutely. We are at the hour. What I want to do, and I'll start with you, Apostle Ellis. I just want to get your final thought on our topic tonight, how to get through struggle. And then, Chris, we will end with your final thought, your final words that you want to give to our Love Bay family on tonight. The last thing that I want to say is just, again, what we've already said before. Struggle does not mean failure. It does not mean failure. Struggle means you just have an issue that you're working on, no matter how serious it may be, but you're working on it, you're moving forward, you're making progress. Struggle does not mean failure. So Apostle Ellis, I'll ask you to go first and give us your final thoughts on our topic this evening, how to get through struggle.
I'm so glad that I was on to listen. And again, I can remember, and I said it on the last show, when I didn't know how I was going to take care of my oldest daughter, and I ended up in a secretarial school, bringing her to school. But sometimes it's necessary to go through some struggles to get you to victory.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have to be encouraged. And if people have a support team, but if you don't, know that you're not alone. And on your way through the struggle, through the storm, you're going to hit road bumps. I watched Chris and Latoya and Calvin struggle. And every day was not Sunday, because my daughter would call me, little do Chris know. But they didn't stop. The thing is, keep going, no matter what. And as Pastor Tia said, you can't tell everybody everything and let people whisper in your ear, but be strong and keep on pressing your way through. And you will see that you're going to have the victory. You might not have $1 million home, but whatever you are blessed to do as climbing that mountain, always know that you're walking in victory.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Apostle. And Chris, your final words for Love Bay on tonight.
Really simple. Just love one another. Work as hard as you can. And when it's time to keep your head down, keep your head down. And when it's time to look up and to see what you've done, you can do that. But first and foremost, love yourself. If you're in a bad situation when you're getting abused, find a way, set a plan, get out of there. And if you're working hard on doing your business, understand that you just continue to work forward and push forward, and it will be okay. Okay? Be empathetic, share, help others. You will be okay.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. I want to share the information again for Genesis Women's Shelter and Support in Dallas, Texas. Their website is genesisshelter.org. Their 24-hour helpline is 214-946-4357. Again, their mission is to provide shelter, safety, and support for women and children who have experienced domestic violence, and to raise awareness regarding the cause, prevalence, and impact. Again, this is in Dallas, Texas. Genesis Women's Shelter and Support. Their website is genesisshelter.org. And the 24-hour helpline again is 214-946-4357. So Love Bay, thank you for being with us on tonight. If you want to catch up on previous episodes from our program, you can visit us on our YouTube channel, Suffering in Silence TV. Thank you so much for joining Suffering in Silence with Pastor Tia on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. And Love Bay, we want you to remember that we are rising out of the ashes together. Good evening.